Most people carry a secret burden, a belief that their inability to stay disciplined is a flaw in their character, a quiet shame that whispers, "You're weak," while others seem to thrive. But what if this assumption is not only false, but entirely upside down? What if the root of your so-called failure is not moral weakness, but a biological truth misunderstood by nearly everyone? The truth is this: the modern idea of discipline, pushing through, delaying gratification, endlessly striving, is not aligned with how your brain was built. Not metaphorically, literally. Your brain did not evolve to care about long-term goals or abstract ideals. It evolved to keep you alive one moment at a time. For hundreds of thousands of years, our nervous system has adapted to seek immediate safety, quick pleasure, and the conservation of energy. So, when you feel resistance to going to the gym, sitting down to write, or finishing that project, it is not because you are broken. It is because your brain is doing its job. Its priority is not greatness. It is survival. It is still running a program written in the caves of human history. Back then, resting meant survival. Movement meant risk. Effort meant danger. Dopamine was meant to reward action only when necessary. So, when you reach for your phone instead of your book, that is not laziness. It is neural efficiency. It is your biology optimizing for energy conservation. The problem? We now live in a world that demands the opposite. A world where you are expected to be productive, resilient, and focused every day, like a machine. This creates a painful contradiction. Your biology is ancient, but your environment is new. Your brain wants short-term comfort. Your life requires long-term effort. And when you try to bridge that gap using willpower alone, you're attempting to override millions of years of evolution with a motivational quote. It might work for a day or two, but when you are tired, your brain returns to its default path, the one of least resistance. This is not a weakness. It is inevitable. Even best-selling author James Clear in Atomic Habits reveals that real discipline is not about trying harder. It's about designing better systems. Those who appear most disciplined are not stronger. They've simply aligned their environment with their biology. They don't resist the brain. They reshape the terrain. This video will not shame you for procrastinating. It will show you that you were fighting a battle you were never designed to win alone. The problem was never your desire. It was the setup. And once you see the setup clearly, you can rebuild it intelligently, with compassion. You can stop blaming yourself and start working with your mind instead of against it. This is not a weakness. This is wisdom. And it is the first step to real, lasting change. Once you begin to understand that your brain is wired not for greatness, but for ease, the real battleground of change reveals itself, not in your willpower, but in your environment. It is here, in the space between you and your intention, that most resolutions quietly dissolve. We have long been conditioned to believe that self-control is a heroic trait, a moral muscle that just needs to be flexed harder. But as James Clear wisely illuminated, this belief is a myth built on shame. Self-control is not some indestructible force within us. It is fragile, highly sensitive to what surrounds us, and it often collapses in environments that are subtly designed for failure. Consider how your day begins. You decide to change your life, to reclaim your health, your clarity, your energy. The desire is sincere. You want to work out. You even feel motivated. But when the morning arrives, your gym clothes are buried under laundry. Your shoes are in the back seat of your car. It is cold and gray outside. Meanwhile, your couch greets you just steps away from your bed, soft and inviting. Your phone lies beside you, still lit from the night before. A new notification is already waiting. Now pause and ask yourself honestly, is the decision still about discipline, or has the battlefield shifted? The choice is no longer between what's right and what's wrong. It's between what's near and what's distant, what's effortless and what feels heavy. And because the human brain is an instrument of conservation, not confrontation, it will always lean toward what feels safer, closer, and easier. That is the hidden problem. You are trying to elevate your life while living in an environment that anchors you to your old self. You are trying to sculpt new behavior while surrounded by cues from an outdated identity. This is where the shift happens, not through force, but through architecture. James Clear calls this choice architecture, a term that awakens us to a profound truth. Your behavior is not just a product of intention. It is shaped by what your senses encounter first. Visibility, proximity, simplicity. These are the silent sculptors of action. In one study, Clear mentions, a simple shift in a cafeteria, placing bottled water near the entrance instead of in the back, led to a dramatic increase in water consumption and a decline in soda sales. There were no warnings, no willpower campaigns, no pressure. Just one change: access. The environment led the choice. Now imagine this applied to your personal rituals. If you want to read more, do not hide the book inside a drawer. Let it greet you like a friend at rest. If you want to move more, do not leave your workout clothes buried. Let them become the first thing you see, like an invitation from your future self. If your phone distracts you, do not try to outsmart your impulses. Disable notifications, use blocking tools, create friction between you and the path of least resistance. You are not just setting traps for laziness. You are building bridges to discipline. Because here is what most people never realize. Discipline is not about trying harder. It is about setting things up more wisely. The most consistent people are not superhuman. They are architects of their own behavior. They arrange their spaces, triggers, and routines with intention so the right choice feels natural, even inevitable. They do not wait for motivation to visit them. They make action easier than avoidance. And that is the true breakthrough. To become more disciplined, you must become more deliberate about the world you build around you. Like a sculptor shaping clay, you mold your environment to mirror your values. Over time, what once required conscious effort becomes your second nature. And if you stay with this practice, something even deeper awakens. What if you could not only design your outer world, but rewire the very loops your brain runs on autopilot? What if discipline stopped being a struggle and started becoming your instinct? That is what we will explore next. But first, pause and reflect. What in your environment still whispers to your old self? And what could you change today to begin answering to the new one forming within? Even when you've confronted the harshest truths, that your brain is wired for comfort, not greatness, and that your environment quietly shapes your fate more than your intentions ever could, another question inevitably emerges. How do you actually bridge the gap between knowing what you should do and consistently doing it? How can you bypass the fragile illusion of motivation, which arrives like a guest but vanishes when you need it most? The answer lies in a strategy both profoundly simple and psychologically elegant: habit stacking. In James Clear's work, this concept becomes a key that unlocks the unconscious. It teaches us not to fight the brain's nature, but to use it as an ally. The human mind operates through ancient circuitry, habit loops composed of a cue, a routine, and a reward. These loops are not theoretical. They already exist within you. You brush your teeth as soon as you wake. You scroll through your phone the moment you sink into the couch. You brew your coffee the instant your feet touch the kitchen floor. These actions feel effortless, not because you are disciplined, but because they are automatic. They live in the architecture of your nervous system. Here is where the brilliance of habit stacking emerges. Instead of trying to build a new habit from the ground up, which often collapses under the weight of resistance, you attach a new behavior to one that is already embedded in your routine. You essentially borrow the momentum of a previous habit to give life to a new one. And in doing so, you bypass the hardest part of change, the beginning. Let's make this real. After brushing your teeth, you sit down to meditate for 2 minutes. After making your morning coffee, you write a single page in your journal. After locking the door, you whisper a grounding affirmation to yourself. These moments may seem insignificant, but psychologically something far greater is occurring. You are forming a neural bridge between the old and the new, between autopilot and intention. The brain begins to associate these behaviors as one fluid action. The cue fires, and both the old and new routines follow. You are not forcing discipline. You are weaving it into the tapestry of your day. Why does this work so effectively? Because the mind resists starting far more than it resists continuing. Once an action has begun, inertia becomes your companion. And momentum, not motivation, is what carries behavior forward over time. Yet, this method is not about randomly linking tasks together. There is an art to it. The new action must be small, less than 2 minutes. It must be specific, not vague. Read a page is specific. Read more is a loophole. It must be immediate, happening right after the original habit, without delay. These are the psychological anchors. Follow this structure, and you begin laying mental tracks, grooves in your mind that guide behavior like a riverbed channels water. And here is the most powerful part. Over time, you will no longer decide whether to act. Your body will move before your doubt awakens, before hesitation clouds your clarity, before your inner saboteur whispers, "Do it later." That is the quiet triumph of discipline. It is no longer an argument inside your head. It is a silent agreement between your soul and your structure. And while these stacks seem small, even trivial, they begin to accumulate. They form a chain of victories, invisible at first, but mighty in their long-term consequence. One day, you will look back and realize your life is no longer scattered intention, but a woven ritual of clarity, energy, and purpose. But if this is so transformative, why do people still stumble? Why do good intentions still fade? It's because procrastination, contrary to what you've been told, is not laziness. It is a signal. It is poor design, not poor character. In the next part, we will dismantle this misunderstanding and reveal why habits fail, not from lack of effort, but from not honoring the 4 invisible laws of behavioral change. There is a heavy cloud that hangs over the word procrastination. Most people internalize it as a flaw of character, a mark of laziness, or a lack of self-worth. They whisper to themselves in frustration, "I'm just disorganized," or worse, "Maybe something is wrong with me." But this narrative, while painfully common, is deeply misleading and corrosive to the psyche. It trains your inner voice to turn against you. But if we step back and observe from a deeper psychological lens, something liberating emerges. Procrastination is not a moral failing. It is not a defect of willpower. According to James Clear and supported by modern behavioral science, procrastination is not a disease. It is a symptom. It is a reflection of misalignment between your inner world and the external systems that shape your daily actions. Your mind is not resisting work because it is lazy. It is resisting because the path toward action is poorly constructed. In other words, you are not broken. your systems are. Let us bring this idea to life. The brain, as we explored earlier, is a creature of reward. It is designed to move toward pleasure and away from discomfort. Not because it is weak, but because evolution favored efficiency. This is why you will instinctively reach for your phone instead of opening a textbook. The screen offers immediate stimulation, novelty, and gratification. The textbook, however, demands focus, patience, and energy for a reward that only lives in the distant future. For the unconscious mind, this is not a difficult choice. It is an obvious one. In this way, procrastination is not a failure of ambition, but the natural outcome of a poorly designed environment that works against your biology. So what do we do with this knowledge? How do we build a life that cooperates with the brain instead of fighting it? The answer lies in the 4 laws of behavior change, the unseen architecture of sustainable habit formation. First, make it obvious. The brain is a visual organ. If your desired habit is hidden from sight, it is hidden from the mind. Visibility creates familiarity. Familiarity reduces resistance. Second, make it attractive. Tie the habit to something that sparks joy or comfort. Light a candle, play soft music, use your favorite pen. Pleasure, however small, creates anticipation. Third, make it easy. Shrink the task until it no longer feels threatening. Studying for 5 minutes sounds achievable. Writing 1 sentence feels doable. When the start is small, the action begins to flow. Fourth, make it satisfying. Reward yourself. Track your progress. Celebrate the completion. Even the smallest reward triggers a sense of closure that keeps the mind engaged. Let's walk through this in real life. Imagine someone who wants to study each night, but the materials are buried under clutter, the television is blaring, and they expect to sit for a full hour without pause. The brain sees this as a mountain. It hesitates. It retreats. Eventually, the person scrolls through social media instead, then feels shame and repeats the cycle tomorrow. But now let's apply the 4 laws. The study material is already laid out on a clean desk. They start the session with a warm drink or calming sound. They study for just 5 minutes with clear, simple goals. When they finish, they mark their progress and watch a short episode of a favorite show. Suddenly, the mountain becomes a staircase. What changed was not the person's character, but the structure guiding their behavior. And this is the turning point. Discipline, in truth, is not about brute force. It is not about suppressing emotion or overpowering resistance. It is about design. A poor system will always sabotage good intentions, but a well-designed system makes the right action feel natural. In this light, procrastination becomes a signal, not a sentence. It is a whisper from your unconscious saying, "The way is too hard. Make it easier. Make it clearer. Make it more rewarding." Ask yourself these 4 questions. Is this task visible? Is it even slightly enjoyable? Is it easy to start? Does it end with a sense of reward? If the answer is no to any of these, the problem is not your effort. It is the scaffolding beneath it. And here lies the most powerful realization of all. When you shift the system, the behavior changes itself. You no longer have to force yourself to act. The action becomes part of who you are. It flows silently and steadily, without needing a battle each time. But you may still wonder, what if I still don't like these tasks? What if I dread waking up early or writing every day? The truth may surprise you. You don't need to like the process to be consistent. You only need to make the process inevitable. And that's exactly where we go next. Because the secret of the disciplined is not that they are in love with repetition. It is that they have stopped negotiating with excuses. Modern culture often repeats a comforting illusion that in order to be disciplined, you must first enjoy the process. We are told to fall in love with the routine, to romanticize the journey, or to do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. These phrases sound poetic, but for those who are struggling, they carry a quiet cruelty. They imply that if you don't feel passion, something is broken within you. They plant shame where structure is needed. And they ignore one of the deepest truths of human nature. Action does not always spring from desire. Sometimes, action must come from decision, and the decision must be anchored not in mood, but in meaning. Here is the paradox. You do not need to like discipline in order to live a disciplined life. You simply need to make discipline inevitable. The most consistent people are not driven by a burning love for every task. They are not superhuman, overflowing with motivation at dawn. What they have is something more reliable, a design, a system, a ritual that removes resistance and makes the action so obvious, so accessible, that not doing it feels more unnatural than doing it. Let's turn this truth into something tangible. Imagine you want to start running every morning. The reasons are clear: health, energy, and self-respect. But on most mornings, desire will not be waiting for you. Your bed will feel softer than your goals. Your mind will whisper justifications. The weather will conspire against you. The world in that hour will not cheer for your effort. And left to motivation alone, the habit will die again. Now, consider a new design. The night before, you place your running shoes and clothes by your bedside. You position your alarm across the room so that rising becomes a physical act. You select a playlist that awakens something primal as soon as your feet touch the floor. Perhaps you've arranged to meet a friend, and their presence awaits at the corner. The route is chosen. Your light breakfast is ready. In this new story, running has not become easier, nor more romantic. But you have shifted the balance. You have made discipline the default, and in doing so, you have removed the need to argue with yourself. This is how truly disciplined people operate. They do not negotiate with emotion. They architect their behavior. They reduce friction until the action feels like gravity. They do not wait to feel like it. They create a life where the behavior flows through them almost involuntarily. This is the sacred difference between living in the realm of motivation and living in the realm of systems. In the realm of motivation, everything is conditional. If you're tired, the habit dies. If your mood dips, the ritual disappears. But in the realm of systems, action is uncoupled from emotion. The behavior becomes a part of your energetic field. It becomes a quiet movement, like breath, requiring no decision. James Clear distilled this truth into one brutal sentence: "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." What you hope for is irrelevant if the design of your day does not support it. Your identity will not be defined by your intentions, but by the rituals you enact even on your weakest days. And the more these rituals are automated, the more you reclaim your energy from the chaos of decision-making and redirect it toward creation, clarity, and calm. This is why saying, "I hate routine," or "I'm not a morning person," no longer holds weight. No one needs to love routine. You only need to place your discipline in the path of least resistance. Let it become part of your nervous system, part of your internal rhythm, part of who you are. And that is where we must now go deeper. Because discipline is not the final goal. It is a mirror, a reflection of the story you tell yourself about who you are. In the final part, we will unravel this deeper transformation, the moment when discipline is no longer something you force, but something you embody. Not because you made yourself act differently, but because you finally saw yourself differently. And from that vision, Your entire way of living quietly, permanently shifted. When you trace the path of true discipline, you discover it is not a divine spark gifted to the fortunate few, nor a rigid trait carved into your DNA. Discipline is not a crown you must earn through perfection. It is a natural byproduct, a quiet echo of a well-designed inner world. It arises not from punishment, but from alignment, from the harmony between your environment, your daily structure, and the way you perceive yourself at the deepest level. When these layers converge, discipline stops being a battle of will and becomes a quiet inevitability. But beneath this lies a truth more foundational than habit or strategy. No transformation will hold, no behavior will endure, if the self behind the behavior remains unchanged. And this is where the real shift begins, not in what you do, but in who you believe you are. James Clear once wrote that the deepest form of behavioral change is not about goals, but identity. It is not about chasing outcomes, but about embodying the kind of person who lives those outcomes by default. Identity shapes habits. Habits, in turn, reinforce identity. It is a sacred loop, one that deepens with repetition. So, if you desire to become a disciplined person, you must first treat yourself as someone who already is. Every small act, rising early despite resistance, putting pen to paper when your mind wanders, choosing presence over distraction, is a whisper to your unconscious saying, "This is who I am now." These are not just tasks. They are votes cast in favor of a new self. And though they seem minor, they carry immense symbolic weight. For in the language of the psyche, it is not the magnitude of the act, but its consistency that redefines the internal script. When you embody this shift, you no longer depend on fleeting waves of motivation. You do not wait for the storm to pass or the stars to align. Instead, you quietly build the structure beneath your feet. You remove friction, reduce choice, and carve a path so clear that even on difficult days, the right action feels inevitable. This is not controlled by force, but influenced by design. You stop wrestling with your mind and begin collaborating with it, creating rituals that cradle your deeper values. In this way, discipline reveals itself not as an endpoint, but as a reflection. It mirrors the mind that has learned to flow with life rather than fight against it. It reflects the soul that has stopped pleading for strength and instead architected its reality to invite the behaviors it most desires. And so now, the invitation is yours. Don't shame yourself for lacking willpower. Not to delay your progress until inspiration visits again, but to begin today, quietly, humbly, by changing the shape of your surroundings, by anchoring your days in meaningful habits, and by treating every small choice as sacred evidence of who you are becoming. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to be consistent long enough to let your new identity take root. And once it does, you will no longer chase discipline. You will simply live it. So tell me, what is the first habit you will redesign starting today? Leave it in the comments below, for even the smallest written commitment is already a vote for the self that is waiting to be born. And if this journey spoke to something in you, subscribe and stay close, because here we go beyond surface advice and into the architecture of the soul. If this touched something sacred inside you, don't let it fade into silence. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your presence here is not just support, it's resonance. And if you feel moved to give back, your donation becomes a quiet but powerful gesture that helps keep this light alive for others still walking in the dark.